Howdy, 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 ho. Corny as hell. How's everybody doing? Whew, I broke my headphones. My last bike trip. Pull out my phone and just the headphones come out, and I was like, oh, no, wait. I pull my phone out and I see the lightning plug just dangling in it. I was like, oh, fuck. Did I just break my whole phone? But luckily it came out. Easily because these Apple earbuds were designed to break gracefully. So when shit like that happens and there's excess pressure, they just kind of like popped off the top instead of having the whole lightning wedge in there. It's nice work. Sometimes things also need to be designed to break properly because you can't accept perfection from your users. Maybe from yourself you can. Having said that, I hope this audio is going to be good enough for now, but I'll think of something. I have another pair of headphones. It's just really convenient, those controls. I was going to take my other pair of just like regular monitor headphones, but they were kind of bulky and big for a ride, and I didn't feel like I was going to be so aerodynamic with them. Yes, this episode is going to be all about headphones and my struggle with finding the perfect one. Maybe it's something that we all struggle with, finding the right pair of headphones for the perfect occasion. I like to talk about making things a bit difficult, not just giving into comfort and stuff like that. Well, I'm a complete hypocrite. I want to have the most comfortable headphone experience each and every time I go out. If I'm staying at home, I want nice open back headphones. When I'm out, I want some closed ones, but not too close because I don't want to feel like I'm isolated from the environment. If I'm biking, I want to have controls so I don't have to reach for my phone every time. And actually, I've come around to wireless headphones. I used to think they were a gimmick, and I just didn't think that the sound quality was going to be good enough and all that. I was wrong, and I was delightfully surprised. My sound, the Bose, the not canceling one, but the one before that. They're pretty good, but I think the microphone on mine's broken. Haven't had a successful phone call with them yet. Okay, so I really hope you all think that was a troll, because it was. If any one of those companies wants to reach out to me, wouldn't mind. Anyway, so I don't know. I kind of exhausted topics to talk about, right? And no, I didn't. I've been thinking about some stuff. Back in the day, I made a note for myself, and it's funny how some things you remember, some things you don't, but sometimes things come to you and you just see them very clearly and you can talk about them for hours, but then the time passes and it's as if like you have to go digging in some mine in Kazakhstan or something like that, because I wanted to talk about, one second. What the fuck is that? Anyway, sorry. Yeah, I wanted to one day I was talking about like being objective, right? So how we think we want to be objective, how objective can we really be, and if it's even possible to be fully objective. So I made myself a note to talk about this topic. That's been like maybe a week has passed. Now I get the idea. I remember I was talking about, I can't really think about how I wanted to approach it, which is funny. But it reminded me of a quote from one of my lectures back. Well, this is over 10 years ago now. Some English writer dude, he was talking about writing things down, the importance of writing things down, because he said at the time when I came up with the idea, or when I was inspired by this idea or whatever, he says that at the time only I and God knew about what I was going to write, and some time has passed and now only God knows. So basically the gist is that you're gonna forget, and but I find it kind of funny, to be honest, how like you can forget certain things that are probably more pressing to you, more beneficial to you, but you can remember trivial things like this quote, for example. I guess I learned something deeply from that quote, and I attributed a lot of meaning to it, versus something that just popped into my head was I felt strongly about it at the time, but feelings don't last. Because if they did, you would be in a lot of trouble. You'd be in a lot of pain. So yeah, facts don't care about your feelings, because feelings aren't loyal. Yeah, anyway, Jesus Christ, am I this old? God damn it. Anyway, I was gonna say, well, let's approach the topic of objectivity, right? So what does it really mean to be objective? Well, subjectivity is probably pretty easy to explain. On the surface of it, it's basically when you are biased. You want to see things as you want to see them, and you are trying to align your argumentation and obviously the outcome to fit your view, your understanding, your goal. Objective is not the opposite of subjective, not when humans are concerned. To be objective, I think, it means to be not biased from the beginning. You're not trying to see something through, but you're willing to be convinced. You have an idea that you're willing to debate, but I think you're having an open mind and you're open to argumentation, so that if there is a strong enough pull in the other direction, you're not going to resist. In fact, you're going to welcome it. I would say that. So with you being like slanted from the side, one side to begin with, and then the other side of the argument pulls you strongly towards it, well, maybe you're not going to go all the way down to the other end of things. You're going to find yourself in a position where you're a bit more balanced. That's how I think objectivity in humans really is expressed. But of course, there's a scientific objectivity where you're just looking at facts, where you're looking at evidence, you're looking at the data, and you're not trying to weave the story that you hope is true. You're not trying to understand things through religious premises or your social premises or whatever, or you're basically not trying to take any shortcuts. How about that? Not quite accurate, I would say. There are, and a lot of times when we talk about, now here's a trick in here, some of the first ones are going to come up. We talk about objectivity, we often refer to science. Science kind of pioneered this idea that people should be objective in argumentation. In fact, it's been around before them. The ancient philosophers realized that playing with words can be pretty freaking dangerous, and you can say something and you can just arbitrarily like this word, and then you can be of this religious disposition, and most of the times you are. And so sometimes you find yourself that there's always something driving you, there's always something motivating your argumentation, there's always something motivating your research, there's always something that you are trying to accomplish. But in objectivity, like in science, as it's like coming out of science, tries to say, well, let's just look at what we have, right? Like, let's just look at things as they are and see what kind of patterns we can extract, not the patterns that we force onto the phenomenon, but what we can see. So the first trick, like I said again, is that this has not been the case as often as you would think. A lot of scientists are biased. Yes, we can see some good peer reviews, and usually the better stuff gets funneled to the top, but not often, especially not at earlier stages as well. A lot of scientists were religiously motivated, a lot of scientists were financially motivated, and a lot of scientists were also political. Well, a lot of them were zealots, let's just put it that way. And some of them just managed to sneak in through nepotism, luck, charisma, and so on. So now, were they subjective? Were they not objective enough in their science, or were they overpowered by subjectivity? We can get into discussion of definitions here, which wouldn't really be helpful to the argument at all. we're not trying to redefine things. We're trying to see the patterns. And if a pattern of objectivity is a realistic one or even a worthwhile one. So in science, well, I would say that I've thought about this in a while, about a lot of philosophers, scientists, and I have this standard that I set on them. A lot of scholars, and I like to call a lot of them pure thinkers. Not a lot of them, I should say, sorry. I like to pass them through the standard of mine called, which I call being a pure thinker, and a lot of them failed. A lot of them failed for the reason that they are not as objective as I think is worthy of their stations. In philosophy, I think maybe they're more easily forgiven, but I think some of the pure philosophers are like the atomists from back in pre-Socratic era. These guys looked at the world not through origin of creation, not through life, not through the meaning of life. As soon as you put meaning in it, you can also just kind of forget about the idea of objectivity. It's going to make it really challenging for you to maintain objectivity, but it's always doable. But they weren't, they were kind of thinking about it, right? Like, what's this universe made of? I think they were more thinking about that in it that way, like, what is it made of? So their arguments, I haven't been exposed to it that much, but I saw in just enough of it to know that these guys were on a whole nother level that a lot of people will never attain in their lives. And that's that they've broken down things little by little, and then they went further beyond their ability to experience these things and posited that there's probably something even more divisible and even on a smaller scale that builds up things that we see on bigger scale, because they notice that like things aren't like in wholes, like as wholes, like with a W, right? Like things are made up of other things, like the earth itself. There's water component to it, there's earth component, there's trees, this and that. So then they look at trees and they can say like, okay, there's leaves on it and this, that. So then they cut the tree and then they see it's made up of this, of that. They look at, of course, you can just look at an animal and see so many different components in it. So they're saying that, look, man, these things have a lot of parts. Some of them are moving, some of them are stationary. It's not unreasonable to think that there is a further division in these things and creatures that is also fundamentally the building block of the universe. Now that right there, and you have to understand where they're coming from. Obviously, these guys are coming from ancient Greece, 2,500 years ago, more. Man, like there's limits to what they could like entertain, like in their minds. But they did a lot. Because everybody else was like, oh, there's the unmoving mover. They would come up with some, not weird, but they would come up with some sort of presupposition that they would try to work towards. Like, okay, there's like a God, obviously, right? Like there's this supreme thing, and then we're all trying to like reach supremacy. And then they would say like, well, actually there's this like beginning state, and then there's this like phase, there's this kind of like parallel universe, maybe you can think of it in Plato's Platonic terms, like the forms where like we're all sort of mirroring this perfection. But they all colored their perspective, because I think a lot of them looked around and they said that like, hey man, a lot of this stuff is pretty crap. This is a dead animal right there. This fucking dude just got stabbed, he's gone. My stomach hurts, I don't even know if I'm gonna make it tomorrow. So they're like, fuck man, there's gotta be something better out there, right? But that right there, it just goes to show that they're coming at it from already like a point of pain and suffering, or maybe something, or a point of pleasure, where they're just like, oh man, they got high on some fucking mountain from sulfur deposits, and they're like, wow, look at this shit, boy, that's nice. Like honestly, how do you look at the stars and draw a fucking bear, two bears and a fucking ladle? I mean, maybe a ladle you can draw from those stars, but a bear and a horsemen shooting a bow. Get the hell out of here, partner. That's not happening. That's not objective thinking at all. That's you already trying to impose all these visions that you have, trying to create universe in your image, or in your whatever image you have of it. So these guys were pure thinkers. I would put Socrates probably a bit more on the pure thinking side, where he was just like willing to drill things down to their cores, like why this, why that, oh well, do you think this is better than that? And like he was just this relentless thinker. And actually I would really put him up there, because even though we don't really know who and how he is completely, I would say that he really embodied this idea of objectivity, where like you're not just gonna sit here and try to get everybody to agree to what you want to say. He was just there like, okay, break my argument down, or I'm gonna break, let's see how strong yours holds up. And I think that's the objectivity that you can strive for as a human being. So skip ahead a few millennia, I guess, almost centuries. I would say in the scientific world, the standard that I hold up to pure thought, simply because of the adversities he had to overcome, is Darwin, Charles Darwin. Now I know there are probably other similar theories, and there's never the one guy that came up with it, and some obscure text somewhere will discover that like some ancient Babylonian had this idea and whatever. Darwin did too, so I'm gonna talk about Darwin. He's better known. He looked at this stuff and he said, look at these birds, man, like you can't just nitpick. Okay, I'm gonna put this finch here, put this finch over here. Okay, there's too many finches, I'm gonna put a freaking falcon over here. Okay, there's too many birds. Okay, so I'll put a squirrel there. That's a squirrel, that's a big one. Let's make like a cute smaller looking squirrel. Let's put a chipmunk over there. I'm gonna put a fucking crocodile right there. You know what? Just to that shit just doesn't match, man. Just doesn't match. You know, because like if I put a crocodile there, that means I gotta put like a swamp there, and that's just gonna fuck up the whole aesthetic, right? Nah. So okay, I'm gonna put crocodiles in like a warmer place, like Africa or some shit like that. So he looked at this stuff and he's like, there's just no way it's been plucked like this, right? Everybody else was like, no, it's plucked. That's how it is. There's like a perfectly competent boss up there, and he's just placing these things as he sees fit. We're just too stupid to understand it. Honestly, don't even try to think about it. Like, don't even try to understand why the eagle and the finch and the squirrel are in these like wooded areas versus why an alligator and the hippo are in watery areas. Is just beyond our understanding. Don't even try to understand that. Just pray to God. Just chill, man. Just whatever. So he said, no, man, like this is not making any sense. Let's take a look at this stuff. And he built these ideas step by step. Man, if you read because I read some of it, not all of it, but I read Descent of Men. You can understand now, this dude was a pure thinker. He takes these evidences, he puts them together, then he backtracks on some of them, he rebuilds the argument by plugging these new discoveries in there. He says all these things like, there's evidence for our sorts of behaviors in lesser species. There's evidence of our behavior in different kinds of people, like when they just discovered the black people and the native Indian people. So he isn't usually what people would do in a case like this, and they have done back then, and they rejected him. They're like, I'm not coming from a fucking monkey. What they would usually do is they would just reject the idea completely, and they would say, no, you're freaking wrong. There must be some other explanation that we just don't know right now. And right now, we're not trying to fuck up our lives to have our worldview shattered, okay? So he took this onto himself and he said, no. I'm shattering this shit. Because you guys are telling lies. I'm Southern now, by the way. So you guys are telling lies. You guys are deluded. Like, this is crazy. Like, I'm just gonna write about what I'm writing about, There were obviously other scientists, obviously they agreed with him, and some of them, a lot of them didn't. So again, I'm telling you, so being a scientist does not make you objective, not even by a long fucking shot. You can get through a science degree and be a complete fucking idiot. I've seen it. I know people who have chemistry degrees, biology degrees, they're dumb. They just did the tests, and as soon as the tests are over, they say, oh fuck, I can forget about this stuff. And then they're like, well, I can't really find a job. Different discussion. Different fucking discussion. So that brings me to another point of objectivity. Kind of fits with what I was describing earlier. In that Darwin was a fucking brave dude to say what he said when he said it. And don't forget, he's not Dr. House either. He doesn't have amazing technology at his disposal, right? He doesn't have all these nice microscopes. He doesn't have MRIs. He has nothing. They're cutting things open. They're lucky if things aren't like rotten and just like, it was tough doing science back then for everybody, for the fucking animals, for the people, for the doctors. But he went on a journey, on an actual expedition, and he looked at this stuff and he said, look, there's just a huge variety of these finches that are freaking related. And it clicked. He said, there's also a variety of other animals that are related. You can look at different varieties of squirrel, different varieties of cow, different varieties of this. And he's like, we've even done this with some of them. We've done it with the cows. We've done it with the dogs. We've done it with so many other things. So it's not only natural, it's possible to recreate this phenomena. And we have been doing it, but we just kind of want to throw our hands up and say, no, this is actually God doing it. So an objective way to look at me right now, look at this argument right now, if you have been following along, isn't to demonize me and say like, oh, you're just out there bashing God. I couldn't care less. There could easily be a God out there and he's just like, all right, cool. I guess I deserve that or whatever. But to explain the variety of species and the evolution of things and how humanity has come to be, that explanation isn't good enough. That's not what we see. But there's an amazing house song, I forgot by who. I'll get it later. There's a line in it, and it says, only people see what they want to see. Only people see what they want to see. Goes something like that. Has like a tribal vibe to it. Pretty cool. But I thought that was profound. Because no other animal looks at another animal and says, well, that's my baby. Or like, oh, that's clearly not a tiger. That's a cat. But humans will look at stuff and they'll be like, no. That's not it. That's actually something completely different. What is, I don't know. I don't know. It's not like, don't ask me, man. It's way beyond me. But I'm pretty sure that it's not that. It's not that, but something else. So only people have this ability to, like, you can even ask them. You can just go up, follow along, and be like, hey, so do you think dogs can fly? No. So how come you're trying to say that like there could easily be a flying dog somewhere? Well, it's because we never seen one. But you've never seen a dog fly? No. But you're also saying there could easily be a flying dog? Yeah. Horrible example, but I think the key word there is easily. These are more convoluted examples with things like people will argue over what's better, or like, for example, diets. They'll fucking come up with this bullshit claim that like quinoa makes you lose weight. People gorge on quinoa and they're like, how come I'm not losing weight? Oh, that's because you didn't do it right. Blah, blah, blah. Offshoot. Next. Offload responsibility. Next. Oh, actually, if you want to lose weight, you need to run from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. That's when you can lose the most weight, because when I was running, I lost weight and I was running from 6 to 7 p.m. It's not because that's when I got off work and I had free time to do this stuff. No, I figured out, I was the only guy that figured out that the metabolic rate exponentially rises at 6, completely shuts off at 7. So if you want to tap into that shit, do it. Okay, I've done it. I haven't lost weight. What's going on? Oh, I don't know. You must not have been running hard enough. I almost died. Well, you must have been eating something wrong. So is it the food or is it the thing? I don't fucking know. Next. That's not objective. That's not objective because you're not willing to face your mistakes. You're not willing to reevaluate your theories. You're not willing to look at things as they are and to say that, oh, fuck, they're not what I said they would be. Because you don't have to go 180 on these things either, right? Like, to be objective doesn't mean that, like, you figure it out on the next turn. Well, you could say, well, I don't know, maybe try 5 to 6:30. Maybe you have a slightly different window. You could be a bit more objective that way. But obviously, to be objective is to look and see, well, how many of these people, let's say, tried my 6 to 7 running technique? How many of them lost weight? Okay, this guy lost weight. This guy lost weight. All right, but these other motherfuckers didn't. Okay, let's see what separates this one from the rest of them. Hey, what have you been doing? Running? Okay, running. Oh, you haven't actually been running. You would just start for 5 minutes and you would stop. Oh, okay. And you just kept on eating the same way. Oh, okay. Is there something in food? No. It's the metabolic window from 6 to 7. I'm a nasty motherfucker when it comes to these things. Whoa. Oh, fuck. This insect's like a speakerphone. God damn. Anyway. So what does it mean to be objective? How the fuck do I know, honestly? But if you want to have an idea where, as a human being, you're always completely detached from the conversation, and wow, I've never heard anything that loud from a tiny ass insect like that. So if you want to say that you're always impartial and you're never putting yourself in the argument, I think I've given you enough evidence to suggest that that's very hard to do. And because a lot of these subjects, they'll slip away from right under you. So Darwin, let's say, he was passionate about sciences, but he wanted to become a good scientist. He allowed himself to be very vulnerable there because he probably thought that was the best way to achieve objectivity. But I'm sure there were areas in his life where he was blindsided. I mean, like, I don't know, he married his cousin. Some people would say that's fucking disgusting. Back then it wasn't all that bad, but here you go. Like, look, he was able to, I think, which was even more prominent in his time, religious. He was able to sever himself from this religious thought and pursue his vocation purely. But when it came to domestic affairs, some sexy time, he couldn't see past. Especially, it's kind of weird because, you know, genetically he's kind of close to her. Maybe he realized it later, but he said, fuck it. But he wasn't able to detach himself from that. Maybe there was other things that he also did that you could say that he wasn't thinking about clearly. Like another one, is a great example is Isaac Newton, right? Like, this guy was a genius in a subject that requires extreme objectivity. Physics, mathematics. He was able to think like a machine, like a computer, and he was just so good at it. But he also needed this human insight that allowed him to posit new theories that weren't they weren't accessible. Holy fuck, there's a big ass hawk over here. Yeah. But then he also thought that all right, if I don't make it, you know what? So then he thought that well, he was just obsessed with religion, right? I don't know, that doomsday was coming and Jesus' second coming or something like that, and he was celibate, and probably that fucked with his head as well. So there's no such thing as pure objectivity. You shouldn't try to become a machine. To be good at something, you shouldn't try to become a machine. And you should understand that you're going to be vulnerable in some areas, and you're going to have to sacrifice some part of yourself, or especially if you're undertaking something, that's where you want to be objective. But you don't need to be objective in everything. You don't have to try to be correct in everything. That's like the cancer of human thought. Like, you always want to be right. That's like the brain's big defect that fucks everything up. But you definitely want to allow yourself to be swayed. So I think if you practice it that way, objectivity, and you can say, okay, I'm pretty strongly set on this idea, and I'm pretty confident this is going to be right. But you allow yourself to be persuaded, not just for the sake of it, but because you are persuaded, you're open-minded, you evaluate the ideas against your own, and you're not immediately discrediting them. I think that's the best you can hope for. So, can you be objective? I think so. I think I'm a pretty objective person. I'm willing to listen. I'll give you an example. Just right now, I was commenting on Reddit about this guy who claims that crazy story, actually pretty impressive. Maybe I got a little bit jealous, to be honest, about it. So he used to be a garbage man, and in no means, I don't know, he knows that there's a bit of a stigma in our society about that, but I have nothing against people who do the work that needs to be done. And he didn't want to be that anymore, sat down for 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, studied computer development, and within 6 months got a job at like one of the top Silicon Valley companies, he says. I commented on another thread that said like, oh yeah, this, you shouldn't be saying some of this stuff, people don't have the same, some of the claims were a bit outlandish. And I said, yeah, you know what, a lot of these fucking people can claim to be this, claim to be that, they're all front-end engineers, but all they can put up is like a fucking button, and then the next thing you know, it's like, that's it. And they'll put up like do some easy things on the server. And a lot of people liked my response to it. They said, oh, you write about this, you write about that. But I wish I didn't say that, because a lot of that stuff wasn't all that correct. Because there's nothing taken away from this person. That, yeah, my point was that like, this is very unrealistic for most people to attain. You're not going to be sitting for 14 hours a day, every fucking day, studying. And especially me, I was trying to learn this stuff on my own, and it was incredibly, incredibly hard. And it took me way longer than I was hoping. I was hoping I would do it in a year. It took me longer than. So I was like trying to tell people that don't shoot for this standard. Allow yourself to learn, to let it soak in. And after a while, some people responded, and I realized, I'm like, you know what? I was too harsh on this person, because the goal really wasn't to become the best possible developer in 6 months. What he said is that he got a job in 6 months. And after I thought about it, I said, of course, that's the whole point. That's the winning game. And one of the main reasons he got a job wasn't just because he knew so much. It's probably because the employer saw the dedication. They're like, wow, this person is willing to power through a hell of a lot to achieve what he wants to achieve. We want that kind of person. And if you ask me, that's the best quality in a junior, any position, I would say, that I would be looking for. If I have a person who knows a lot versus a person who is capable and will perform better day after day and won't crumble under pressure, I'm taking that second person, right? So I commented on it, it got popular, but then I said, no, I was so fucking wrong about this stuff. I was also following along with this other person who had made some sense in the beginning, but I said, but I was just so tempted because it sounded so right. It was clicking with my view of things. I was not able to accomplish this in 6 months. I haven't seen anyone who was able to accomplish this thing in 6 months. And people who come in to work who claim to have learned development on their own in a short period of time, they suck. Of course, my experience is limited, but I let that energy get away from me, and I was wrong. So I think I'm pretty objective in saying this and admitting that. So to that person, I'm sorry that I kind of disparaged. I didn't really disparage his ability. Like, what he accomplished is his own achievement. It's incredible, and it's impressive, and I'm fully admitting my jealousy, and maybe he's gifted and he was just an underachiever. But at the same time, I have some points, but they weren't, all that valid. They weren't all that valid because he did what he had to do. He got the job. Now he can take all the time he needs to learn programming and learn the craft while getting paid and while having, world-class peers supporting him. So always be willing to reevaluate your positions, not out of weakness, not because you want to be right and you want to be either right your way or someone else's way, but because you found a weakness, and by exploiting it, you found that it made a big chunk of your argument crumble. And in this case, I think that's what happened. I think that after I identified two of those points, I would have sided more with the other people that supported him, and they said, yeah, good job, good job, good job. Yes, it's still not a realistic goal for most people, but I think if your goal is to get a job and you have the ability to, let's say, power through 14 hours a day, do it. Do it, commit your best, and you'll be seen as an admirable member of the team. Anyway, there's a big ass hawk I'm gonna try to take a picture of now, and okay, I'm gonna use my bag if it attacks me or something like that. All right, stay strong, be objective.